Now that was fantastic, John. I really appreciate your elevated sense of proportion, of aesthetics, and the wonderful way that you use your craft to underline those those different qualities. I feel that this is, you know, I mean, there are some problems still, but there's a lot about it that is very masterful. All right, there are some things, some places where I feel you don't support the bass enough. And I know that part of that is because you're going for a certain thinner kind of a sound, or you're trying to focus the attention of the listener in a certain direction, upwards. But all the same, it ends up, some phrases end up not really ending very powerfully. But at the same time, I respect the decision, like the motives behind the decision, even if I don't entirely, feel that it works. So we're just going to completely, I'm not going to overdo it on praising the work. I think what you really need more is just for me to, just to go over the evaluation criteria. And this is one of those evaluations that might be a little shorter, just because there is less intrinsically wrong. I mean, it really, wrong and right is also something I try to avoid saying. But there are fewer problems, that I feel I would need to go over with you. Okay. So let's start at the beginning, and I just want to say that the way that you move the color around and move the theme around between the different instruments is just so beautifully done. Starting off with horns and bassoons, right? You have the lovely mixed quality of those voices, which results in it sounding like a very light, beautiful, wonderfully colored horn sound, right? Basically the horns in this configuration, as you got it here, the horns will use the timbre of the bassoon beneath them to make it all sound like horns, right? And then the way that you come in here with the flutes above, ba ba da da da, that's just so lovely. And then how you just shift everything over to the trumpet, ba da 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 da, with bringing in the violins here. I feel that there's a bit of thinness here to the texture. If you were able to bring in violas as well, I think that it might be more, just have a little bit more balance. But I really love the restraint. Everything is pianissimo, so and nothing. You haven't scored anything, pushing up into registers where the dynamics are hard to control. Like highest note here in bassoon is G, right? Which of course that's easy to play pianissimo on bassoon. And then trumpet doesn't even go higher than E. I was about to say written E, but of course it's a C trumpet. So higher than E. And just everything is really in a beautiful, easy-going place. And I love the fact that you're using kind of middle register flutes here, which actually have a chance at pianissimo to contribute something to this. So that's all really beautifully done. I almost wonder whether or not this could have, like I see what you're doing here with just like leaving the trumpet as this kind of voice hanging in the air. I kind of wonder whether or not these elements here in violins, like this G here, couldn't have continued on, and maybe even a B, like instead of maybe the first violin could have, instead of playing G, could have gone A B and then held on to the B, along with a G, and then E D D, right? So that you get the beautiful G major triad going towards the end. Right. Okay, but does it set the mood effectively? I feel that it does because it shows it's not just that it has like this wonderful quality of timbre, like you're exploring these different things, but it also, by showing how you are exercising a certain kind of aesthetics where you don't just use one set of instruments, where you are moving between colors, and you are kind of moving the emphasis around, and I feel that is once again we're hearing a work that emulates Beethoven to a degree, but you're not really out to do that. Do you know what I mean? You're not really in this to necessarily sound exactly like Beethoven. You're more in it to like express what the music says to you, and in doing that, of course, your personality comes out. So once again, it's a kind of one of these mixed, um, you know voice of Beethoven but personality of the orchestrator that I'm seeing really strongly here. Okay, now I love the idea of the main theme starting with clarinet, and a little bit of lower strings in here, and clarinet, a second clarinet. So da 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 da. This is nice voicing here. Yeah. Now I think there's zero need for this weird, strange slurring. I mean, I don't think the slurring adds anything. I think you're better off just slurring to the beam group. Ta 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 ta. And same thing here. Da ta ta ta. Right. And then here, ta 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 or ta ta. Right. Probably better just to have it all under one bow here. Yeah, but just ta 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 ta. If these nuances are so important to you, then why aren't they in the melody instruments here in the clarinet and so on? Right? They're not. So it's better to have things just have a very nice even bowing that will blend in with the octave clarinets here, right? And then once again, I felt that like you just don't have like to have the bassoon being the only bass voice and to have it so high, you end up with a very bright, very loosely connected kind of quality here. And I mean, it's an interesting way to lead forward to this episode here, right? I just feel, I just wonder if you could have gone to octave bassoons there, or maybe like had the maybe double basses played the same thing an octave lower, right? Just needs a little bit more weight here, I feel. Okay, now we're going on to the leggermente section, and please don't leave out leggermente, right? So just always look at those little suggestions that the composers put into their scores. In this case, Beethoven's saying, listen, I want you to be very nimble, right? He's saying I want you to not just be nimble as you play, but I want you to convey the sense of it, right? Because sometimes, like, players can just be flashy, and it fits right into the music, and you don't really think about it. But in this case, Beethoven is pretty much telling the player to call attention to it, right? To play it in such a way that it really, that like the audience is going, oh, did you see the way that his fingers fluttered over the keys, right? So that's really the attitude you want here. So do not leave out the words leggermente. They should go in all of these 16th note passages, right? And this is a suggestion, of course, like you can take it or leave it, anything that I say. But I want you to keep something in mind here, John, and that is that you've got a score here which I feel should get read or performed or something, right? And I think you should see what you could do with this, if it's worth your while, if you have a chance, right? Okay. Now, talking about the orchestration of it, first and second violins, piano, uh, unison with oboe, and with this many, like say 30 violins and one oboe, then it really, the oboe will get submerged into the timbre of the violins. Da 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 da, and this is really cool. The flutes and clarinet and bassoon in this big triple octave, along with some, with the first blending with the bassoon. Da 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 da. Yeah, very nice. And then here you've got this pushing, this this half note pushing forward over the ba da da, and that's also something I haven't seen in other orchestrations, but I think it works really, really well here with the way that you've got things going. So you're coming in here, ya da 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 da, and just a few things kind of leading up to here, going over my criteria. Did the melody start with elegance? Beautifully so. Was there a natural flow in the accompaniment? Yes. Natural transition to octaves? Beautifully done. Expanding without clogging up? Almost not enough weight, right? There's more the viola could do. There's more that the double bass could do. All right. Okay, and then the next one, contrast with theme. Yes, because like the main theme started off in clarinet. Now you've got oboe doubling the violins, right? Okay, and then emphatic color of line. I mean, yes, because you choose to have the violins doubled up together. Now there's a strange thing right in here. You have your violas playing at a seventh, right? And you end up like off by a step, right? So this should be C, B flat, but it is as if you've forgotten that this is an alto clef, and you've scored this as if it were treble clef, but like maybe you were intending it to be down an octave, right? So I think you need to fix this. Right? But no, I mean that is da 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 da. Oh yeah, so it's just this part. This is fine. I was suddenly thinking of being in F major. Sorry, just I'm seeing so many scores in F as opposed to G. So here you got it moving at a seventh. I'm not so sure. I mean, I guess if this is intentional. I didn't, I was listening to it. I'm sort of, my only concern would be is if it were a mistake, right? I can't quite tell from the context whether it's a mistake. But like since you actually do the seventh here, that correctly. And then this is a really good push forward. And I want to say that I really love this one thing that you do here. Like the harmonic density sets up everything. You've got, the emphasis, the color of line, and everything else. Okay, pushing forwards. You do end boom, which is like a forte piano accent, considering the fact that the winds go forward. I just find that is just such a powerful touch. I think that's fantastic. And then having the winds continue on, and then just a little bit of cushioning by the strings with a roll on the timpani. Da da da, and a little bit of horns. Bum bum bum. That way, your strings together. Once again, like you're doing a lot of unison first and second violins, and like it happens a lot. So you may and you have a lot of unison in other places. So you might be able to get more out of like a wider, a more with the function spread around a little bit rather than playing unison so much. You might get like a kind of a wider palette, a wider kind of a sound, a fuller sound. And this is really cool, though. Yeah. Yeah, and this is a great way of, Yeah. You might have even been able to go da 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 da, and then you would have gotten the da 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 da, right? You might have been able to add like a da 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 kind of a rhythm here. All right, but I can't fault the way that this sort of moves forward. You are filling out your sound picture. One of those concerns, thinking ahead to the widening gap, right? And then here you're going ba da 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 da. And you could even get more of a kind of a snarly sound on the accented note here by making this stopped and then open, right? Right? Which would be a very Beethoven-like touch, along with our clarinets here. Yeah, that's all great. And then I really like this. I really love that kind of call and response thing that you've got going on here, and also the way that you're managing the dynamics. Like a lot of the way that you manage your dynamics in here is just it's very intuitive, and yet it's different from a lot of other orchestrators. All right, and that difference I think is a great, unique part of your voice. Right, I think you should pursue it. Right? Whatever it is that makes your view on this so different. I think that's like, it's not to say that it's better or worse, but it is something that is individual. Yeah. Right, and then we're getting to the kind of big flash of tempo here. Forte piano crescendo. I like the way you keep holding off on really, really getting big. And I think you could get bigger here, right? I mean, what does Beethoven say to do? Go to fortissimo, right? So you absolutely could go to fortissimo here. So a due trills, everybody's playing trills. That's a lot of trills. There's almost no bass in here. Maybe you forgot to put it in. It's just and then suddenly you end with a low note here. So I think you might have forgotten to put in some bass notes here. But it just really needs it. Like with you leaving it out, we just really suddenly, we kind of feel we feel like it's sort of almost ending on an afterthought. Right? And then this is interesting, this forte pianissimo. And, in the mock-up, it almost sounded like tremolo. And I was thinking, like, well, if you don't feel it's, like, if you're not hung up on style, then I think the tremolo would sound really, really great over the top of this. And I think you could just keep going for like 2 bars. And then maybe like tremolo and then end just right on have it last all the way to like an 8th note or quarter note, like right together with the end of this phrase. But this is so nice right in here. This like new quality of tone once again. So you've got oboes working with clarinets. Now I just want to point one thing out here, and that is that clarinets a due are going to have a phased sound, right? So you don't seem to be considering that very much in some other places. Like this this being marcato, it's going to be just very pointy, and it's going to be very brief tones, right? So it's not like the ear will really pick up on the phased sound. Right. But like here, a soft, slurred, the quality of timbre is going to be different than what you think, I believe. So why not shorten the slur, da ta, right? And same thing here, and then come in with the second on the downbeat here, and just have this be first clarinet. Da ta na, right, and then ba da 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 da. Pardon, excuse my slightly out of tune singing here. And then this is lovely. Why is this slurred and this isn't? Right, you're very stingy with your slurs in your strings, right? Like it's just a little bit here, little bit there, teeny bit here, or just a. Why isn't this ta ta or ta 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 ta? Why is it ta 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 ta? Yeah, so there, I mean, like you're very stingy with your slurs. I think if this is going to be slurred and have this beautiful smooth sound, then I think that the strings should answer it. Otherwise, it's like da ta ta ti ta ti da ta 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 ta. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, ooh, this is smooth and this is choppy, smooth, choppy, right? Okay, and then this is lovely, just like the strings kind of just handing over to the winds. Ba, ba, ba. And I think you should, well, I don't know, like here you have this crescendo with your horns and this, so it doesn't really matter if this goes diminuendo. And this is fine, like if you want to play these as separate notes. And then just, higher winds. Then yeah, and I like all of this except for this huge leap here, right? Why not have the violas double the cellos? I mean, the second violins do not need any help just quite yet. Have the violas double the cellos, and then and then keep doubling the cellos up to right here, and then go to their own line right in here, right, as you've scored it. That's much stronger. But I think that huge leap is just kind of yeah. Yeah, and this is lovely. This kind of like not really dovetailing, but one stepping on the toes of the other and cascading over. That's all so cool. I feel that this is there have been a lot of entries where some orchestrators seem to be a bit uncertain about how to wrap this up orchestrally and have it make sense. I think that you seem to have the confidence. You're missing a crescendo mark here and here. And but like I think you have a pretty good picture in your head. And then then just cellos. And this also makes sense, détaché. And this is a really good repeat here. Now, jumping forward to compare sections A, B, and C with section E, which you forgot to mark or you left out or something. That's okay. I know where it is. That's fine. We're going to see how you did the recapitulation, right? And it appears that like you're taking an approach is just kind of like, I don't know, copy paste is maybe too brutal of a word, but yeah, just kind of like returning to the original material without really developing it or enlarging it or condensing it or anything like that, right? So you're just kind of doing the same thing that you did before, which worked. It was fine. You just have to ask yourself: do you want to have the same exact timbre and the same exact strategies 4 times in a row, right? So 2 times on the repeat of the A section, right? And then 2 times on the repeat of the second section of this sonata, right? So like whenever the E section starts, which should have the rehearsal mark E here, whenever that starts, you'll come back to that same exact orchestration again. That's so you're so inventive, right? That like maybe you don't need to do that. Okay, and then just kind of same comments as before. I feel that there just needs to be more. There just needs to be a little bit more weight here. Not a lot, but just a little. And then here you have pretty much the same strategy as before. Oboe doubling both violins, and then bassoon and cello, and the sort of stack with the clarinet and a duet flutes. So you pretty much just take the same approach, right? But then when you get to here, you have like clarinet, oboe and bassoon, right? With viola added on, right? So it's just a little bit more intense, especially with a crescendo, right? And you really do push everything forward, which I feel it's just very strong. And then there's even more, right? There's an increased dynamic impact, as I state. Right? And then here, there's like absolutely no question that you have chosen to interpret the viola part as a unison with the second violins, and rather than as like a seventh below as it was scored at the beginning. So yeah, so this is very strong. The violas and seconds in unison, and then this big Beethoven like wind chords behind the motion and the strings. It was absolutely of that period, no question. And then I just really like this, bum bum bum, just really nice. I don't think there's really any need for this whole like slur from the note head kind of approach. I'm seeing it in a lot of these scores. Slur from the end of the stem. Do you know what I mean? It's just it's just easier to read. Like you might think, oh well, it just looks better, and maybe it looks better to you, but in terms of like just the reading, that just like ultra fast reading of the sight reading player, I think that just slurring from the stem end is the fastest and easiest. Because like sometimes when you take this approach and things get really condensed, it can end up looking like a flag, or it can end up looking like some other object that has a different meaning than just being a stem. All right, or excuse me, just being a slur. Yeah, and then all of this is great. Winds and strings fortissimo, answered by just winds at piano. I would think almost that like if you have this kind of approach, fortissimo followed by piano with just a beat of rest in between, you'd almost need to have like a little pausa mark here, just so that the conductor can place the downbeat here after such a huge chord. Now, I mean, it would be especially important if you had like brass and timpani, but since you don't, it's not hugely necessary. But there might happen anyways, just in concert. Yeah, and then same strategy as before, but forte, and then piano, and then just strings, right? And then you flip it with winds and horns and timpani responding. Yeah, so it's kind of nice the way that you're breaking things up. It just keeps things from getting boring, which is great. And then clarinets and horns in contrary motion, leading to this right here with the added oboe. That works for me. Okay, and then we're really back to the same strategy as before. And like I mentioned in my criteria, previous approach may be the only workable strategy, right? It just at least for the way that you have thought things out. So yada da da dum, ba dum, and clarinets, oboe, da da da. So like just to point something out, and that is a turn over a trillo would be a double shake. Da 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 da, right? Because you have the da, right? So you have the yeah. Anyways, some people take it to mean that like the trillo is built into the shake, da da dum, right? Rather than going da 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 dum. Right? So that's one way of interpreting it. But I've also seen it interpreted as like you could do the shake and then you do the turn. Anyway, da 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 dum, and this is just so Beethoven-like right in here. I feel, but in a different way. Like I've heard very authentic sounding Beethoven-like scoring here, but like this also just it's coming from a different place, a different kind of observation, and I think it's just as valid. And then of course like you have kind of some of the same expansion strategies before, the same cascading marcato flute and a duet clarinet. And this, okay, so notice, like I don't know if your mock-up just naturally played a stopped sounding note with the accent and the forte diminuendo to piano, which sounded open, right? But I would say make this stop. Just go plus circle, right? Yeah, and then this all works really, really great. Yeah, and this just sounds, just throwing in these octaves and so on sounds fantastic. And then once again, I just feel like leaving the bass out. I mean, like I understand how you're kind of condensing the excitement a little bit. So, I mean, if you just really feel strongly that that's the right way to go about it, then don't bother adding anything to the bass. But I just feel like there's, and it's also strange that you're going pound, 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 pound with a timpani and then nothing. All right. Anyway. And then going on here, oboe and clarinet, answered by violin. So we have really similar strategies as before. Right, and then winds, da da da, yeah, and just kind of the same thing again. But I just felt it was very, very strong, and once again, it just really felt like this ending was planned very well. The especially strong here, I think, is bassoons, horns, and timpani. I think that all worked great, and trumpet. Yeah, and then just this, I really loved, like, instead of dovetailing, stepping on each other's toes, right? So ending on this G, and then an octave higher starting, and then an octave lower starting in the viola, right? And then you actually have dovetailing. So here, if you really want this dovetail to be seamless, then this should be a 16th value, right? So if it's different here because this isn't really dovetailing, it's like I was saying, stepping on each other's toes. In other words, like starting picking up the same material an octave higher or lower, right? In which case, like if you have a held note, it doesn't interfere with the flow in that new part, right? Where this doesn't interfere with that. However, this will sit on top of this, and it'll make it much less clear. Right? And then da 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 da. And I just feel this is so strong right in here. Da 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 da. Yeah, da 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 da. So cool, throwing in that sort of almost written out turn. Yeah, and this kind of looping, leaping, going up here, and then I would just say make that a. There's no need to go forte piano here. Just make this a 16th note ending in forte. Yeah, and then this is lovely. Just flute coming in over the top. Yeah, it's answered by violas. And then it just seems so anticlimactic, right? Like there's, it's I mean, look, if you feel that subtler ending works, then that's great. That's more your sense of aesthetics, or maybe you just ran out of time and you just couldn't figure out a way to plan this so that it would be a nice big tutti ending. But it just feels a little, I mean, if there's any way to add a little bit more weight here, not a lot, but just a little bit more, I think that you could maintain your sense of restraint here and yet not be unsatisfying. Do you see what I'm saying? All right, so those are my thoughts on the recapitulation. I mean, there's more I could say, but I think I don't want to over insert myself. Okay, so let's go back to the D for development. Once again, try to. I'm just trying to check out. Yes, so you didn't really have any of the rehearsal marks on this at all. So please put those in, okay? And this is just a message out there to people who are watching this who haven't participated in the in this challenge, or maybe they did and they also didn't leave in the rehearsal marks. I had very few of those. So really, John and everybody else, really put in the rehearsal marks because they're very helpful to me, because when I'm organizing your materials, imagine having to organize 172 entries, including my own scores, and to try to make sure that I'm on the right page, that I don't accidentally get sidetracked, or maybe in the state where I am now, where I have to deal with brain fog, I'm finding that my sense of just being on top of the score at all times has been interfered with, and it's still something that I have to struggle with. So please make it easy on me, all right, and put in the rehearsal marks as indicated in the template and in the piano score. I really do need those. Okay, so jumping back to this development section. Seamlessly leading forward, I feel that you do that really, really well. It looks really good, and especially in the sense that you have this kind of, you go into this particular repeat right here, and then you have a similar thing happening, but just like in F minor, right? Or G minor, I meant to say. I'm still stuck in my brain is thinking I'm in the key of F, my eyes are telling me it's the key of G, or G minor. So these kind of analogs of each other make it very simple to push forward seamlessly, is all I'm trying to say. And this is really lovely, just first flute and first clarinet. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. You've got a triple trill here with clarinet and flute, second flute, first clarinet and second flute trilling together. It might not work out the way that you think it's going to work out, okay? But at least the combined sound of second flute and first clarinet is better than the sound of two clarinets, trying to play smoothly together like that. This is lovely right in here. Just a little bit of a swell. And then you go, after ending here, like on your little resolution here, we go to these, to just like unmeasured tremolo. And I feel that's really, really powerful. And just like little tenuto touches. And this is great. Bassoon. And here I think you could have supported this like a duet, or maybe had like support from horn or from like maybe basses or even cellos. Da da dum ba da dum bum bum bum. That's really great. Yeah, because the left hand, like most pianists, they know that they are directing the attention of the audience toward this next phrase. So if they underplay this, then it's sort of like, so what? What did this achieve? Who cares? What is that? But if you really play, if you lean into it, da 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 da, that's exactly what Spencer Myer does, and a couple of other pianists whose interpretations I'm quite fond of. So yeah, da 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 ba da dum, da da dum da da dum. All right, so that should be an E, right? Not a D sharp, right? Because like you like this D sharp is not part of the harmony of what's happening here, right? It should have the D sharp should happen here. This should be an E to line up with the bassoons and the first violins, and then the D sharp happens on the third beat. Same thing here. This shouldn't be C sharp, right? It should be D to line up with everything else, right? And then this should also be D. Yeah, so just watch out for that, right? You got a little ahead of yourself. And this, what I think is great about this, just like the little conversation between first and second violin with the little trills and everything else. I think that it works out so beautifully. And and then just having the clarinets and the bassoons also have a conversation. So I think there's just some powerful work right in here. And then right in here, this is so Beethoven-like. This. Just so great. Forte piano crescendo, excellent. And then, I just you pull the rug out from under yourself, like no double basses here, no timpani. You're right. And then when we get to the da da ba da 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 da, you make it really easy on yourself. By withholding the bassoons, they come in as a fresh color here. So I completely get why you're doing what you're doing. And then with the horns here, you don't have to say F horn in F. Just say horn HN in F. And you don't have to say French horn either. We know what it is. It's like it's a concert horn, right? It's all good. Yeah, and I really like the motion and the direction and the quality of the strings and everything else. I just I feel like and then like leaving out the clarinets and there's like no horn here. I just feel this needs a little bit more work. But I feel that this leads beautifully, almost effortlessly forward with these bassoons towards the recap, right? Alrighty, so those are my thoughts on your score, John, and and I, like as I'm starting to get towards these entries that were like turned in at the last minute or the last week, before the deadline, it kind of makes me feel like all the more sheepish about the state of my health, preventing me from getting to these entries for a couple of years. I just this is totally nothing that I've ever intended. And if you've looked at some of my previous challenges and other activities with the community, I've always been, I've always delivered results on time in the past, and I'm just realizing now that, like, when I had first started, this is a story that a lot of people might want to know. It's something that occurred to me today and yesterday, and that is that as I was going into the whole process, I started taking people's entries and just evaluating them instantly, like as soon as I got them. So that was like in July. Like my usually what I do is, like, I announce the piece on my birthday, July, in the middle of July, and then I close it on my mother's birthday, which is sort of mid to late August, and that gives about 6 weeks. And I had this plan. I'm just going to start evaluating everybody's works like the minute I get them, and just see how much I can keep after this, so that maybe by the time the evaluations close, I'll have a ton of work done of it in advance. And just as I started to get maybe 3 weeks into that, about halfway through the entry process, I was just starting to feel a lot of resistance to working, and I just felt like, oh, this is just really making me tired and so on. And I was really surprised at myself. But then I just, I soldiered on, and I was releasing things, and I felt I made a good start. And then, kind of, as people will remember, kind of mid-September, I just pooped out, and I couldn't go further. So I realized that as early as July of 2023, I was starting to get sick. I can see that now. So it just is all kind of putting that into the pot and thinking about, like, the delay that had to happen, for me to get my health back together. But that doesn't mean that I was going to let this go, like the opportunity for you guys to get your scores looked at and for me to look at them. I mean, it's so exciting. You guys have no idea how, like, let's say 4 weeks ago, I started a new medication regimen. 5 weeks ago, I guess now, and then 2 other medications were added over the course of a week or two, and then suddenly my brain was clear, and I just jumped back into this, like, instantly. Like, as soon as I knew that I would have the mental wherewithal to tackle this, I jumped into it. So that's my story, John. If you have not, I haven't seen you around the community lately, and I don't even know if you're gonna watch this, and I hope you do. Let me know if you do in the comments below, or in an email. But yeah, so now that things are back together, I'm so enjoying this, and I hope that this is still useful to you. And I think you did a great job here, and you got a great ear. You have a great sense of drama. I really love how different your score is, and yet how equally valid it is to some of the more period perfect interpretations. And yet you're not really trying to be period perfect. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got chromatic horns, and you occasionally score things in a style that is, like, more individual to yourself. And yet there are so many touches here that, like, are so true to Beethoven, like right in here. So it's a mixture of a very powerful personality and imagination, and also a beautiful ring of authenticity. I think you put a lot of imagination and a lot of yourself into this, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. And so, if you have time, please comment on other people's scores in this category. I think there are a lot more comments. We're only getting about half a dozen comments under each of these, and there were 26 entrants into this category of dotted brev. So, I mean, if we had 26 comments under each video, that would be great. It would make me feel really happy that people had a chance to, share this experience with each other of having their scores looked at, and commenting on each other's scores and helping each other out. That's really what it's all about for me. And and people in the comments, people watching this video have already made comments, I bet, by now, and they're just waiting for me to shut up. So that's what I'll do now, with thanks to everybody. And this is the last of the movement 1 category, or the movement 1, the full movement 1 entries for the dotted brev category. After this, there are going to be 6 scores that are all movement 2, and then after that, we'll go to the next category, the longa level, and that will go. Those are all movement 1 scores. So people who really love movement 1, you'll get a chance to see more scores in that. And then, of course, there are another 10 scores coming after that, which are the full 2 movements. All right, so, and those will be released over the weekends in November. All right, so anyways, stay tuned, everybody, because there's some great stuff to come, and I'll see you tomorrow.